Welcome back to Smith Coding and Design. This is tutorial number 3 on our DDC Pump top. So last time we went through a series of 2D contours. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead, face the backside, make our second relief cut, and then do all of the chamfering. So with that said, let's go ahead and begin. So again, to make our life easier, I'm going to come to the first facing operation that we did, and we're going to reuse that by just right clicking and going to duplicate, and then I'm going to drag it all the way down, and now we're going to right click and edit. And what we're going to do is, again, we're going to leave our speeds and feeds the same, and we're going to jump over into our geometry tab. And so the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and clear the selection. And then again, I am going to essentially turn the part as it would be on my machine. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so this is how it would look on the machine if I were to be facing the bottom of the part. So what I want to do now is go ahead and set my tool orientation so that my axes are in the correct direction. So we'll click here, select Z and X axis. So let's go ahead and do that. And my Z is in this direction. Let's try that again. Okay. There we go. But X and Y are wrong. So now we'll go ahead and select X. And since X is pointing in the wrong direction, I'm just going to click on the tip of the arrow. And there we go. Now we're perfect. For my machine, Z, X, and Y are now pointed in the correct directions. So what I need to do now, if you remember from the facing operation we did in the first tutorial, we need to make sure we select our geometry correctly because we don't want to face all of the stock and then collide with our vise. So I'm going to go back up here and I'm going to go ahead and select our part, and then we'll just kind of go through our tabs here and make sure everything is fine. So stock top. So we're going to machine from the top of our stock to the top of our model. That's perfect. We'll now go into the passes tab. So 90 degrees. Remember from the first tutorial, if we didn't select 90 degrees, we would be machining this direction toward the vise, which we didn't want to do. We wanted to go in a 90 degrees pass and go across the top of our part like shown here. Okay. So that all looks good to me. So what we'll do now is we'll go ahead and click OK. Beautiful. So that looks good, and as always, we will go ahead and right click and simulate. I'm just going to go ahead and sort of drag the timeline here just to make sure everything looks fine. Looks good. We'll go to sort of the front view here, and I'll just make sure that the tool is coming all the way off the part. Looks good to me. Okay, so now we'll go back to our home view. And we'll just go ahead and orbit so we can see. Sorry about that. And now we'll just click play and sort of let the simulation play out. So I think we're going to take a roughing pass or two and then go with a slower finishing pass. Again, this is the same exact tool path we used to face the front side in tutorial 1. Speed it up a hair, and there we go. So what I will do now is exit the simulation, and what we want to do is go ahead and make that second relief cut for our chamfering. So again, I'm going to go to the first one. So let's go back to our home view, and again you can see as we click through, let me just click through these various tool paths. Again, you can see by enabling that tool orientation, you can see how our fourth axis would be changing. So what we want to do again is we want to duplicate this tool path, but for the back side. So we'll right click, we'll go to duplicate, and then I'm going to drag it under the face, and then right click, edit. And again, what we're going to be interested in here is not the speeds and feeds. They're going to be the same from tutorial 2. We're just going to go and enable our tool orientation. And then again, I am just going to orient the fixture as it would be on the machine. There we go. So the back side is facing up. And now I'm just going to adjust my axes accordingly. So I'm going to go here and select Z and X plane again. Now select X. All right. So now Z is pointed in the right direction. X is backwards for me. So I'm going to click the arrow and there we go. Perfect. Z up, Y forward, and X to the right because my fourth axis is on the left side of my machine. I am happy with that. So the next thing we need to do is clear the geometry, and then we'll select the top side here. So we want to go to chain, open chain, and I'm just going to select this upper contour on the back side of the part. Again, just trying to make some room so we can do our contours. All right, there we go. That looks good. So we'll go ahead and click OK. And there we go. We're just making that 100,000ths relief so we can come in and do our chamfering. Now what we should do is go ahead and simulate just to make sure that nothing crazy happens. I hate how when I hit home view we sort of flip back when we're actually simulating on the other side of the part. So let's simulate. There we go. Beautiful. Just making that relief cut. And there we go. So now what we're going to do is actually get into our chamfering. So let's go back to our home view and then we will go ahead and start our chamfering toolpaths. All right, so now we are going to go to 2D chamfer. I'm going to go into my tool library and select my 1/4 inch lemur chamfer. All right, we're going 4,000 RPM, 20 inches a minute. We can increase the feed rate if we want. I'm going to leave it at 20 inches a minute. I'm then going to go to geometry, and because if you remember we just did the relief cut on the back side of the part, our fourth axis is already rotated for the back side. So I'm going to chamfer the back side of the part first. So I'm going to enable tool orientation. Again, I'm just going to rotate my vise in the direction it would be as if it was actually on my machine. And so I'm going to click on the tool orientation here and select Z X plane. We'll start with our Z and then we'll select our X. X is backward, Z is backward. So I'm just again clicking on the tips of the arrows. All right, that looks good to me. So now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and select our geometry. And what we'll have to do here is 2 separate chamfer toolpaths because the chamfer width for the G1/4 is going to be much wider than what I am chamfering the edge of the part. So for the edge of the part, let's go ahead and go through our tabs here. So we want to be model top instead of stock top. Let's go to the passes here, and I'm going to use a tip offset of 50 thousandths, and then I'm going to make the chamfer width 15 thousandths. All right, you can enable smoothing and feed optimization. And the next thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and change this lead and sweep angle to 45 degrees. And that's going to do it for that toolpath. Beautiful. So you can see it's on the back side of our part. Good. So now what we're going to do is another 2D chamfer. So again, to be efficient, what I'm going to do is just right click on the chamfer toolpath we just made and go to duplicate. And now I'll go ahead and rotate the fixture. There we go. Orbit a little bit just so that we can see. Okay, now I'm going to right click and edit the toolpath. And again, I'm going to go into geometry, and this time we are going to deselect the edge here, and we're going to select our G1/4 hole. We'll check over our heights tab, model top, selected contour is fine. And then we'll go into our passes, and this is where I want to change things. I want a nice large chamfer around here, so that way when I perform the thread mill, there won't be a burr at the top. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and make this a 40 thousandths chamfer. Select OK. There we go. So we'll go ahead and simulate our chamfers. Let's go ahead and do that now. Here's the first one. Okay, that looked good. Let me just walk through. Yep, that's good to me. And now we'll go ahead and simulate our second chamfer. Beautiful. All right, so now what we want to do is go ahead and start chamfering all of our tools on the other side. So I think what we'll do next, let me go back to the home view, is go ahead and chamfer the hole on the side. So again, that's a G1/4 hole, so I'm going to want a 40 thousandths chamfer. So I'm going to go ahead and again just duplicate this toolpath. So I'm going to right click, duplicate. I'm going to select it and edit again. And all we need to change here is our tool orientation. So again, I'm going to go ahead and sort of rotate the way that it would be on our machine, like so. And then we will go into our geometry tab. We'll go ahead and get rid of our selected geometry, and we will change our Z and our X edge here. So I'm going to type Z, click on Z first. I'm going to select this edge, and then I'm going to go ahead and flip the direction of the arrow, and that's actually perfect. X up, Y forward, and Z up, Y forward, and X to the right, which is how it is on my machine. And then I'm just going to go ahead and go select the hole. There we go. And then our height, again, model top, selected contour, that's fine. And for our passes, again, we have a 40 thousandths chamfer on these large G1/4 holes, just so when we thread mill them, we make sure there's not going to be a large burr at the top here. Okay, so I'm going to select OK. We'll go ahead and simulate. And we'll just go through the timeline this time just to sort of slow it down. So that all looks good to me. Nice big chamfer there. We'll exit. And so now what we want to do is go ahead and do all the chamfering on the other side. So what I am going to do is go ahead, because I know the chamfering on this side wants to be 15 thousandths like we did with the edge on the back side. I'm actually just going to right click and duplicate our first chamfering path, drag it to the bottom here, and we're going to go back to the home view. We're going to select and edit. And this time, when we go into our geometry, I'm just going to deselect tool orientation. That way we're back in our default view. We'll get rid of, back in our default orientation. We'll get rid of our contour selections. And now I'm just going to go through and select all of the contours I want to chamfer. Since the G1/4 threads are really going to be on the other side, which is where the connector will screw into the part, I don't need to make the back side of this whole 40 thousandths. I'm going to leave it at 15 thousandths. So we can go ahead and chamfer the front side of our part with just one toolpath, which is what we'll do here. So we'll just check our tabs here. So our top height, model top, selected contour, perfect. Passes tab, again, 15 thousandths is going to be our chamfer width. So that's all good. 45 degrees, I'm okay with that. And now what we'll do is, again, we'll just go ahead and simulate. And I'll just use the timeline here. Perfect. Beautiful. So that does it for the chamfering. And I think that's going to do it for this tutorial. So what we will do in the next tutorial is we'll go over the drilling operations and then get into the thread milling. So we should be able to finish the part in the next tutorial. Again, I hope you enjoy the machining you're going to see on the Tormach after this. And please like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next tutorial. Alright guys, now we jump into the facing operation. So you see the 4th axis rotate. We're going 40 inches a minute, 40 thou depth of cut, and 50% diameter of the tool in terms of width of cut. Again here, we're going to do a couple roughing passes, and then we would do a finishing pass at a slower feed rate. So that's sort of it for the facing operation. And so what will happen next is we will go ahead and transition into a 2D contour. So this contour here, we're just making 100 thousandths relief, so that way we can go ahead and chamfer all the edges on our part. So again, we're using the same Gorilla Silverback end mill, 3/8, 3 flute, 30 inches a minute, 50 thousandths depth of cut, and the entire diameter of the tool in terms of width of cut. And so this pass here should hopefully finish up the contour, and now we'll transition into the chamfering. So the chamfering here, we're going 20 inches a minute with a 15 thousandths chamfer width. Again, going nice and slow and just trying to get that beautiful chamfer. And here in a minute, we'll go ahead and start chamfering our G1/4 holes with a wider chamfer. We are going 20 inches a minute and doing a 40 thousandths chamfer. So there's a little more action going on here since we're chamfering all of the edges of the part. So we get some nice rotations to sort of show off the micro arc. So guys, that does it for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed both the Fusion 360 portion and the machining. I'll catch you guys in the final tutorial, which will be posted soon. Thanks again. Please like and subscribe.